Okay, here we are. We're in front of, yes, the UN Security Council. We've covered the run-up all week, and now it's been announced by President Trump. Airstrikes on Syria, precision, it was described. Now, what will happen? We were here this morning. We were here yesterday. We were here through all the BS. We were restricted by Antonio Guterres, corrupt Secretary General, flying off to Saudi Arabia as we speak, a junket for blood money. What will the Security Council do now? Here we are, in front of it. Those are the flags. This was the circus. This is where Nebenzia. I'll turn this down for now. You heard it. I'll take it for granted that our listeners have actually heard what Trump said. But all week long, Bolivia called a meeting. Russia called a meeting today. The U.S. said today, in this very space, right there, Nikki Haley said, I'm going to D.C., we're still deciding. And now the announcement of airstrikes. How fast will Russia, who spoke right here in this space, Nebenzia stood right here in front of the assembled Russian media, speaking in Russian. You can find that on our feed. We're ready. We're here. We were evicted from our office. We have nowhere to work. Yes, the airstrikes have begun on Syria, and the live stream has begun here in front of the Security Council. How long will it be until a meeting is convoked in the good name of the UN Charter? It's a joke circus. Here we are. This is the place. This is the highest body of international law. We've covered it all week. You can find in these periscopes. Go back. We covered Nebenzia. We covered Nikki Haley. We covered Karen Pierce of the UK. We covered Monsieur Delat, who oppresses Africa but speaks about other people's civilians. We went down to D.C. We asked Heather Nauert about Syria, about whether Syria. Look, tourists are going through the UN. See, the UN on Friday is a bar. The UN on Friday has Eurotrash come in and drink, and they love it. These people have full access to the UN and inner-city press. We can't go through. There's a turnstile there that because we covered UN corruption, we can't go through. So we're waiting for the notice. When is the meeting? All of the hoopla, 4 days of BS, 4 days of threats and pontificating speeches about the importance of international law and of the UN Charter. What does it all come to? Donald Trump goes on TV and says, I'm launching airstrikes. And Macron, little Macron, colonial Macron is with me, the reformer, and Theresa May, the war cabinet, Theresa May, she's with me. Okay, so where are these champions? Where is the respect? Where is the Secretary General? Today he cut a very delicate line. He's for the Charter. He's against the Cold War. But, oh, by the way, I've got to fly to Saudi Arabia to get some more money. Or maybe a golden staff. He sold out to Paul Biya of Cameroon. A total joke. Today, right down the hall, maybe you can see it. I don't go over there because the guards don't like me. I stood there because I covered a stakeout here about Gaza by Palestine, Kuwait, and Tunisia. And I asked Antonio Guterres, why haven't you created your own independent probe? And he went, please, I'm too big for this. What I can say is this is the white-hot center of the UN, such as it is. This is the Eurotrash. Maybe someone will come along and vomit on the floor. Where's the UN spokesman? Today he left. He works over here. Let's go check him out. Let's go check it out. This is where the UN spokesman works. He threw inner-city press in the street for covering corruption. But today, before 5:30, before his office closed, he left from this very hallway, whistling, as always. Why did Big Tony wave off the press? Oh no, it's sorry, not even sorry. This is beneath me. You know what Big Tony Antonio Guterres did today? He went and gave a 20-minute interview with Al Arabiya to promote his visit while civilians are being slaughtered in Yemen. And I'm sure he's going to put out some canned statement that he didn't even write. I don't even know who writes it. I'm ready to tell you. You know what? Who is his former head of political affairs, Jeffrey Feltman, working for? With whom did he sign a contract before he left the UN? Look at the case of Bernardino Leon and you'll know it. The UN is a corrupt cesspool. The countries, everyone understands that they're fighting for their own interests. But the UN is corrupt. To be continued. I'm going to go write a story first. Abolish it. Maybe it doesn't want to end. Maybe we're called to continue. Okay, here we are. This is Live Blog 2. Now, sometime after President Trump announced airstrikes on Syria after a full week of UN Security Council circus, meetings called by Bolivia, meetings called by Russia, meetings called by all and sundry, speeches given by Antonio Guterres, the most lackadaisical, the most cynical, the most hypocritical, the most corrupt, the most censorious Secretary General ever. He gave a speech about the new Cold War, and then he jumped on a plane to collect more money from Saudi Arabia. Disgusting. Yes, this is the photo with which we've... And there are some other photos. In any case, we're here in the UN because we thought, while there are many talking heads in the world, we want to document that from down this hall, first of all, there's our live blogging spot on top of a garbage can in front of the UN Security Council because Inner City Press was thrown out of its office at the UN. We've reported on the UN for a decade. We've broken many stories about UN corruption, and for our troubles, we were thrown in the street, and our office was given to an Egyptian state media that never comes in, never asks questions. Therefore, we work on a garbage can in front of the UN Security Council. Yes, it's true. Here we are. A Zamboni machine came down the hall cleaning the rug. Blood-splattered Security Council. Where is Peru, the president of the Security Council? Bâtiment des conférences. What does this symbol has been so degraded? Today we wrote a story about how in Central African Republic the UN killed 17 civilians. The corpses were laid in front of their base and they did nothing. We wrote a story how they stole money in Somalia. Stole it. Outright. No accountability. And now, when the chips are truly down, when the airstrikes are falling on Damascus, the Secretary General is on a plane to collect money from Saudi Arabia. Blood money, installment 2. Only today, we tried to ask him a question. On this one, we were the only journalists there. He walked with his spokesman, Stefan Dujarric, who was also the spokesman for Kofi Annan, also the spokesman for Ban Ki-moon, a long-time individual who threw the press in the street in favor of semi-conscious, comatose, no-show state media. And so here we are at the media center of the United Nations. What does the UN and its many apps have to say about airstrikes on Syria? We're waiting. Is Antonio Guterres already on the plane? Does he have his back cushion behind him in first class as he flies to collect yet another, like a vulture, like a vampire, blood money from Saudi Arabia? $930 million wasn't enough? People are coming out. Look, Eurotrash is drinking fine tonight. The strikes are coming down, but the selfies will not end. Yes, it's true. Not their fault. Garbage can blogger, because the UN is corrupt. The UN is a joke. The UN is a circus. Earlier today, Nebenzia gave stakeouts right here, and he said, no, it's unthinkable. Absolutely unthinkable that there could be... Well, the unthinkable has become the reality. And we stand and wait. Where is Bolivia? Where is Bolivia? Where is Russia? This is an authorized stakeout position. This is a guard who sometimes pursues us around. We come in through the tourist entrance because the UN is so corrupt, it can't accept an actual journalist covering its proceedings. Prefers to have retirees with garbage bags coming in from New Jersey to show up in a briefing and say, not even say anything. Some say, Steph. They love Steph. They love the UN. They suck up so much that the failure of the UN, as bombs fall, to even stop playing the Eurotrash disco music, doesn't get covered. And yet, we will cover it with this phone which the UN Correspondents Association threw to the air and tried to smash on Wall Street, as the Secretary General was sold for money to Chinese businessmen. Now, Antonio Guterres sold out to China for 5 days last week. He couldn't even stay in his $60 million mansion for more than 2 days. Got to fly off for Blood Money Part 2. Now, earlier today, Antonio Guterres' global communicator, from whom we're still awaiting communication, came to this turnstile on the other side, but said, I forgot my pass. Oh, they said, please. And we asked her, we said, you know what? This is where we go through. Any bozo journalist can go through it. Anyone that doesn't ask any questions, but we can't anymore. There's a guard, so I won't show you because they have some rule that you're not supposed to show your own oppression. That's the UN, you know. They kill people in Central African Republic. They rape children there. They killed 10,000 in Haiti. Waiting for the response of the so-called international community to this thing that has been widely described as an outrageous breach of international law. Elevator up, elevator down. Second floor, what do they call it? Menswear, menswear. Wait a second. People going up, people going down. You missed the carpet cleaning. They were trying to clean the sleaze off the carpet where Antonio Guterres walked because he wouldn't answer a simple press question about the thing he'd been talking about. Too busy running to get money from Saudi Arabia. Oh, but he's doing it for the children. Yeah, that's why he let Saudi Arabia off the list. The war has begun, but the rolling suitcases just can't stop rolling. We're here. We will remain here. You see, if we step out of the building, we can't get back in. In the past, we could. The Egyptian state media can come in any time they want, but inner city press, there's a censorship curfew. So until we're remaining right effing here. Here we are. Secretariat, the UN Security Council. This is the pinnacle, they say, of international humanitarian law. This is the place that's supposed to react when the bombs fall. They convene emergency meetings. BBC comes up from Washington. Al Jazeera, Al Arabiya, Reuters, they're all here. Oh, wait, scratch that. They're not here. Who's here? Inner city press, the evicted, the restricted, the maligned. Oh, no. How could you dare ask the Secretary General what he did about? Guys, corrupt. 16 months of corruption and silence and censorship. No. And we have a right to be treated fairly, by the way. We have a right to be treated like any other journalist here. Not better, but not worse. But we're treated worse. We can't go down the hall. I guarantee you there's probably journalists sitting in the UN bar drinking, haven't even looked at their phone to see a war started. Oh, no. Maybe I can get some. Yeah, good luck. It's a syphilitic organization, by the way. I don't mean to be a moralist. Let 100 flowers bloom. I'm just saying, if you're going to restrict journalists, you better make sure that those you give full access to, or 20-minute interviews to, in the case of Antonio Guterres, aren't just a bunch of paid Saudi propagandists. But, hey, selling TV service, selling cable service. This place is more. There's more chicanery in the United Nations than there is in a homesteading squat in the Bronx. There's more people selling stuff they don't own than in a carnival in Kansas. Nope. Hurry up. The bar is still open. Last call. Last call for human rights. Last call for international law. Last call. It's only $8 a glass. The UN has a contractor. The UN has a caterer that serves up Angry Orchard. Come on, who cares? A couple of bombs, no big deal. The night is young, and Antonio Guterres is old and decrepit and corrupt and flying to Saudi Arabia for money. He should turn that plane around. He's in first class. He's got the cloud. He's the moral leader of the universe. Oh, really? Yeah, sure. That's why he waved off inner city press with a wave of his hand. You can find it. We did a Vine. It only takes 6 seconds to see how corrupt Antonio Guterres is. 6 seconds. Yeah, exactly. Sauve qui peut, sauve qui peut. Pull out. Like rats on a rotten ship. The United Nations has hit bottom. Hit absolute bottom. Dead computer screens. Euro trash. Oh, no, they're going in. Let the drinking begin. See, I get stopped there all the time, but I'm sure if you show up as a tourist or as a prospective drinker or maybe even as a prostitute, you're in fine because the UN is a bordello. It's a bordello. It's got a nice logo. It has a beautiful building. It has a lot of history, and it's a total decrepit, corrupt place of censorship run by arrogant, overplayed wood stealers. Wood stealers. That's a reference to Nigeria, but you can look that up yourself. Here it is, the Inner City Press newsroom. Evicted from its office in favor of an Egyptian state media that hasn't asked a question in 10 years, Inner City Press has decided to live blog the war on Syria from a garbage can glassed off next to the UN Security Council. Yes, it's true. We report, you decide. The most biggest name, the most authentic name in news, Inner City Press. CNN has an office upstairs. I can tell you that there's a bunch of aluminum food plates in front of it, but there's nobody there. I'm standing here because I can see who's going up. There's nobody there. I have to work in the hallway, and I can tell you that all the people that have offices are all gone or drinking. in the UN bar. Now, maybe the UN bar is going to finally prove itself a place for solving global problems. They always say, oh, well, it's very important. I'm wearing a suit and I work for France 24. I must be an important diplomat. No, you're a paid scumbag. You will report anything that somebody pees on your head as news. On the other hand, self-servingly, I will say, nobody likes us. They throw us in the street. They try to break the computer. And yet, under the rules, even as a non-resident correspondent, we're here. Just after the airstrike, that electrical cord is the proof that this is an authorized stakeout location. Rudaw Media stands here. So does, I forget even what it's called, the Scam U.S. Arabic language station that's here. It has its own office. Al something or other. Al Scam. Al Scam Radio. Al Hurrah. There we go. A fine member of the UN Correspondents Association. It's just state media. It's propaganda. These are the same guys that try to throw inner city press out of the UN. It's a joke. It's a joke. I'm obsessed by hypocrisy and sleaze. I'm obsessed by how tawdry the UN, the international system that people put so much faith in, is actually run by a bunch of people that are so corrupt that they evict their enemies and break their computers and then say, oh, I don't know. What about accountability? What about the ICC? I know Liechtenstein. They have an ambassador of Liechtenstein talking about accountability all the time. He knows that the UN threw a journalist in the street and he did nothing. Nothing. $1 million apartment on 40th Street and 2nd Avenue. So yeah. It's not that it got under my skin. I've decided to cover it because you know what? Nobody else covers it. A few people came through and they covered it for like a week, and then they were like, either it's boring, or there's no way to fund it, or who gives a shit, or I want to make friends. I'm past that point. You broke my computer, it's on, bro. And so it's not just on. Forget me. Bombs on Syria. Where is the Security Council? I'm going to check, I wish I could pause this broadcast, but since it's live, it's hard to pause. Let's see if Peru, who only recently, after weeks of complaints, put inner city press on their email list. Let's see if Peru has come through with a statement of an emergency meeting. Politico. Breaking news. Trump announces precision strikes on Syria. Anything else? We got nothing. Nothing. Let's see if Antonio Guterres has managed to tweet from the bathroom of his first-class plane. Let's check it out. Let's check that out. Nope, I think Big Tony he's down for the night. He's tucked himself in his first-class abode, and, you know, soon enough, the blood money will become rolling in. Okay, let's check it out. None of these people are UN journalists. These are all like other people. Other people's money. Disgusting. Antonio, where are you? Let's check another feed. Let's check a UN feed. Let's see what UN official has anything to say about these strikes. And I say it agnostically. I say it, believe it or not, as a journalist. I just want to see what these great champions, these people who've made good money talking BS, still no confirmed, okay, they're criticizing Trump for not having confirmed people. Oh, look, UN News Center 5 minutes ago, UN News Center 5 minutes ago, after the airstrikes began, is tweeting Antonio Guterres and Winnie Mandela. That's breaking news. You guys are great. Alison Smale, it's time to actually cover the news again. I don't know how somebody was an editor of the New York Times when they're in charge of a news operation that's like an hour behind. Oh, breaking news! Well, we're here. Okay, here we are. Look. If we need to plug in, we have a UN-funded, taxpayer-funded. I will disclose that. If I plug into this, it's your money. Right now, it's my battery. And my battery says the UN is corrupt. Top to bottom and bottom to top. I'm waiting for the UN missions. Those who gave so many speeches here this week. Where are they? Was it all just play acting? Was it all just an attempt to dissuade what happened? And now that it's happened, they're like, ah, shucks. If you can't beat them, join them. Who's going to join this? I saw Greece wasn't going to join them. I saw the Netherlands, I believe, wasn't going to join them. Will they join them now? Was that just posturing? This is it. This is the center of the international multilateral world. The Security Council of the United Nations, the Bâtiment des Conférences, protocol, where ambassadors and kings and scumbags and torturers and murderers. Paul Biya, they all come through here. Maybe Paul Biya has some kind of slave to pick up his ID, but he still needs an ID. Yes, he does. And he gives the golden statue to Antonio Guterres, now sleeping comfortably on a first-class seat on the way to Saudi Arabia. By the time he arrives, maybe Damascus will be no more. Then he can give a very deep talk about how the Cold War is out of control and conflict prevention. What conflict has Antonio Guterres prevented? Please. What conflict has Antonio Guterres prevented in his 16 months as Secretary General? Name one. I can name several. He threw the gasoline on the fire. Cameroon, gas on the fire, no question. Yemen, how could you name a British envoy with the concurrence of Saudi Arabia to kill Yemenis? How is it possible? Well, nobody cares. The P3 love it. They're all getting paid to kill people, but they're very concerned about some other killed people. And so therefore, they go into that room. Then they come out here and they say, "Oh, we can't believe it. They're terrible." And then now they bomb. My understanding, and I wasn't here then, was that during Iraq War, France tried to say, no, you must stop. Now it's like, hey, the wag, le chien, something about the wagging of the dog. This is the UN Security Council. I ask you, what are your comments on the airstrikes? China, abstention, strong abstention. France, we love it, man. We love killing. We kill people in Cameroon. Why not in Syria? Nabenzi, I can't believe it. This is unthinkable. Karen Pierce, what about Dostoevsky? Nikki Haley, I'm running for office. Haley 2020. Bolivia, I can't believe it. Evo Morales is God. Ethiopia, just don't talk about my coup d'etat. Kazakhstan, don't laugh at this, please. No more movies. Netherlands, hey, we only got 1 year, but North Korea, heard of it? Sweden, hey, we try harder. E10. Cote d'Ivoire, just keep Gbagbo in jail, please, so the IMF guy can keep running things. Equatorial Guinea, don't call us a dictatorship, please. Kuwait, hey, I won't even try. Peru, well, our president was just resigned for corruption, but if you don't talk about it. Poland, you thought we were with Russia, but we're not. All right, and there you have it. The analysis of the Security Council in a mere 20 seconds. The computer is on the garbage can, and yet we remain. The vigil continues. Where is the reaction of the international community? We're waiting. The escalators are off. The emails aren't coming through. Big Tony's fallen asleep in first class, and he's not waking up till the morning. He's going to have a hot towel over those eyes, those sleeping Portuguese eyes. He screwed over the independent press and sucked up to the Saudi press before he left, and now it's time for some serious shut-eye. Do not disturb. Big Tony is sleeping in first class tonight, and all the stuff about the Cold War just has to wait. Tony's got to sleep. That's the UN, a corrupt, overconfident, sleazy place. Let's see. We're going to check again. What have we gotten? Statement by President Trump on Syria. It's been sent out. Okay, we're going to have to repair to our small phone booth to the side. That's where we work now. But for now, here, we'll suspend live blog number 2, the war reports. Now, I hate to say it, I was a fan of Democracy Now! I think they've kind of lost their way. We're going to launch it. Inner City Press, the war reports, here in the white-hot center of international diplomacy, where the UN threw Inner City Press in the street for reporting on corruption. We will continue this live stream in just a moment after we write a live blog. To be continued, the UN is corrupt. Okay, here we are again. Just after President Trump announced airstrikes on Syria at the UN, the toilet paper is being changed. Because, you know, there are physical needs at the UN. The reality is here at the UN Security Council, there's nothing. There's no reaction. We have absolutely zero. We've now written 2 stories. We went into the phone booth we're forced to work from since the UN threw inner city press in the street for reporting on its corruption. We wrote a 2nd story with quotes from Macron and also from Senator Bob Casey saying he should have gotten congressional approval. I don't know. I've seen even, trying to think who was quoted. I think it was Blumenthal of Connecticut. He said airstrikes wouldn't require congressional approval. Boots on the ground would. Well, these are airstrikes. But forget Bob Casey. Where is Nebenzia? Where is Bolivia? Where is Sasha Solis Laurenti? Where is Netherlands? Where are these defenders of the international world? If your country wouldn't participate in the airstrikes, why aren't you here demanding at least oversight, at least reporting back? But no. In fact, if we venture down to this side of the hallway, and I have to be very careful because I've been banned for years covering the UN before I actually hit the nerve of the UN's own corruption on Aung Lap Seng. I breezed through this anytime I wanted. But now I can't, and there's a guard there. So I'm going to stop right here. The UN puts out a whole slew of propaganda. Look at the great magazines they produce. I'm all for Africa, but this is a waste of money. Nobody's reading this. Somebody's relative is getting paid to print shit on paper that nobody reads. Who's responsible? Alison Smale. Since September, in the job, no response to detailed press requests for media access rules. You see, there's state media, Iranian media, Egyptian media, they go right through that turnstile. But an independent journalist is working on top of a garbage can. But so be it. Here we are. We will live blog this war, or at least this stage of the war, from a garbage can in front of the Security Council. It's an authorized stakeout position. People get interviewed here all the time. And so now, and I'll try to watch the screen, I'm willing to subject myself to the grueling interview. I'll interview myself, but if you want to throw in questions, you can. Is this attack legal? Well, no, but who cares? The UN is a joke. Every single country every single permanent member has violated the law and been a thug. Next question. Is Antonio Guterres going to stand up to power? No, he's been sucking it from day one. How do you think he got the job? You can only become Secretary General of the UN if none of the P5, the permanent 5 members, US, UK, France, China, and Russia, think you're bad. And so you get the weakest people ever, and this is the weakest one ever. This individual went to China and praised them. No mention of corruption or the death penalty. This individual is flying, as we speak, to Saudi Arabia for blood money. Disgusting. Okay, battery power low. I don't know if our other battery has any power, so this may be the end. We're here. Here we are. You can see the flags, not just for authenticity, but to say, what's it all about? If multilateralism means anything and the bombs are falling, who's watching the hen house? Well, earlier today, and we'll show you, hopefully, right here. Earlier today, in this spot, right down below me, Nikki Haley was speaking and saying she was going to D.C. to meet with the cabinet. Well, she wasn't joking because the bombs are falling. Yesterday, we asked, Inner City Press, this journalist here asked Karen Pierce of the UK, what about the war cabinet? What about Theresa May's war cabinet? She said, well, I'm not authorized. You've got to ask number 10. Well, I can say Inner City Press has submitted Freedom of Information Act under the UK's law requests and been, after many months of delay, denied in full. Not a single document produced. Absolutely corrupt. France, don't get me started. Just talk Cameroon. And so here we are. We're waiting. Wait a second. I just heard a click. Could it be Peru, the President of the Council, coming out? Hang on. Let's turn this camera around. Sorry about that. There it is. That's the door of the Security Council. Those are the golden gates. These are the guys who would think that they could demand a stop to this aggression. They demanded that Burundi take 228 police, and Burundi said, F you. And you know what the UN said? Nothing. They gave them an envoy, a guy called Kafando, who loves dictators and also just wants to get paid. And they'll do the same thing. Whatever suits them, you know. When the dust settles, they're on the side of power, and if they can get paid, all the better. But that's why this organization is dying, if not already dead. The smell you smell, and you may not be able to smell it through Periscope, is the smell of a dead and decaying and dying international order. Just a circus, just a place for speeches. just a place for literary references, from Moriarty to Dostoevsky to Lenin to Marx. They said it all, and it all came to nothing. It all came to naught because the UN is corrupt. Okay, this is only a few short hours, maybe 2 hours after President Trump announced the airstrikes on Syria. We were actually in this very room. Inner City Press, because it was thrown out of its office, now does some of its work here in the DPI studio. We were here actually receiving a call from a source about UN corruption when the source said, Trump speaking on TV, got to go. So we left and we went and checked it out, and there it was, live stream, announcing airstrikes on Syria. They say 3 sites, maybe more. Syria says there's more, but okay. So then we ran down to the Security Council stakeout because, hey, although we've been evicted from the UN, although they prize sleazeball state media, no-show sycophants more than us, we're still in the building. So we ran to the Security Council stakeout, and we did, I believe, 3 periscopes in front of the Security Council, waiting for the international community. All we found was a bunch of Eurotrash that had gone to the UN bar, stumbling out through the turnstile we can't go through. Okay, so we wrote a number of stories. We've written, I think, 5 stories. And most recently, we asked the UN where Antonio Guterres is, because he was said to be leaving this evening for Saudi Arabia. And as of 11:48, we were told by his deputy spokesman, Farhan Haq, he's still in New York. So that's news. The UN Secretary General, just like when Trump canceled his visit to Lima, thousands of media reported it. Well, when Guterres cancels his blood money tour to Saudi Arabia for this, who reports it? Inner City Press. We reported it, our 5th story, and now we're heading out because at 9 a.m. tomorrow, the Pentagon will give another briefing. That's it. It's closed down. The empty offices of sleazy correspondents are now closed, but we don't care. We have bigger fish to fry. We need to be restored to where we were. We don't want to be treated better than anybody else, but we will not accept dictator, blood-splattered retirees been giving full access, and we aren't. And you know who's responsible? Every single individual. Now let's get to the substance. We're approaching the UN Security Council, the white-hot center of multilateral diplomacy, where all week, 4 meetings on Syria, the circus of diplomacy was played out, and in the end, it meant absolutely nothing. In the end, a meeting held today at 10 a.m. where people took photographs and stories were written. I just spoke to a correspondent that filed the story late that's now thrown in the garbage can. It meant absolutely nothing because the P3, the UK, France, and tip your hat. It's just a urinal. It's a urinal. Now look at the garbage can here. Why is that important? Because that's where Inner City Press wrote its stories, of course. Blogs 1 to 3 of 5 were written on top of this garbage can because the UN, garbage can that it is, through the media actually working to report on this in the street in favor of blood-splattered dictator no-show retiree media. You know who's also disgusting? The spokesman. Oh, wait a moment. Here we can say the only hardworking people, other than Ruda, the Kurdish media that we witnessed upstairs, are the cleaning staff. They're cleaning the bathrooms of the UN. It's being cleaned. It's being cleaned. Your tax dollars at work, and you should be proud of that one. What you should not be proud of is the spokesman's office, which lies and evicts the media. You should demand a refund. Alison Smale, who can't even answer an email in 6 months. Yes, you should demand a refund. This is the White Hot Center, and we hope to return here to report in great detail on the further failure. This is it. This is the Security Council. They had 4 meetings to try to sort this out. They did nothing, but I'm sure they'll have more meetings. And when they do, unless, of course, the UN decides to further evict and be sleazier than ever, we'll be here and we'll cover it. And if they are that sleazy, I hope viewers do something, because this place cannot close itself off from independent coverage in favor of sleazy state propaganda media. It can't. To be continued. This is the pinnacle of international diplomacy. Even as bombs drop without approval from the Security Council, even as U.S. Congresspeople dispute the legality of the airstrikes, this is the temple. And strangely enough, Peru, which has already been elected to the Security Council, is belatedly promoting its presidency. Well, okay. We'll be awaiting their email to know when it is that a Security Council meeting on this will take place. It's Friday going on to Saturday. In fact, it's already Saturday here in New York. Let me show you. This is a golden gift given to the UN by Saudi Arabia. Palm trees, prayer mats, camels. Tonight, Antonio Guterres was to go to Saudi Arabia, but apparently canceled, unless somebody lied, because at noon they said he would be leaving this evening, and at 11:48 his deputy spokesperson said he was still in New York. Since then, they've said that the statement is out, and we said thank you, but still, we've made a request. Tell us where he is. When does he leave New York? Because he's using public money. If he weren't, maybe it'd be different. With Bloomberg, Mayor Bloomberg of New York, he didn't even use public money, and he had to say. So I think we're within our rights. But bigger fish to fry, okay? You screwed us, you threw us out of our office, you're corrupt. Media over independent media who has had innumerable scoops of the UN's corruption. In fact, it's because of the scoops that they do it, but that makes them no better than the dictators they criticize. But here we are. Seems that the Eurotrash has pulled out. We might even keep this broadcast going. Who knows? Here it is. We'll end it. Buenas noches. Guerra. Okay, here we are. This will actually be our last broadcast from within the UN campus on this night that missiles flew on Syria. There's the UN. It's been the venue of a bunch of Eurotrash drinking and a little bit of reporting. We've written 5 stories. But before we leave, because you never know what's going to happen next with these lawless individuals, I want to show you what happened to Inner City Press when we reported on UN corruption. On the second floor there, we covered a meeting in the UN briefing room by a group that took money, $50,000, from a now convicted UN briber, Eng Lap Seng. And we said we would cover it, and we went in to cover it, and they asked us to leave, and we said, if you have paperwork, we'll leave. And they had no paperwork, and so the spokesman, Stefan Dujarric, still the spokesman, said, I want you to leave. Oh, why do you die? And we said, if you have paperwork, we'll leave. If a guard asks us to leave, we'll leave. They got a guard. The guard said, they have no paperwork. They'd like you to leave. I said, no problem. I left. And 3 weeks later, with no notice, no discussion, no appeal, no hearing, I was standing at the Security Council covering, ironically, Syria. And they grabbed my computer, and they grabbed my phone, and they pushed me down the escalator, and they tore my pass off my badge, and they said, you're now a trespasser. And I said, give me my phone. And they said, once you get outside, and if you resist, we'll turn you over to NYPD. And I said, I'm not even resisting. I'm saying I've been a journalist here for 10 years. I cover the UN. No. Said then, I guess, I haven't seen him since, the Deputy Chief McNulty, less talking, more walking. And 8 guards, all of whom I have to see here every day at the UN, because there's no accountability. Said, no, come on. Less talking, more walking. I said, give me my phone back. They said, no. When you get outside that gate, we'll give it to you. And if you resist, we're turning you over to the police. I said, I'm a journalist. My only crime is trying to cover a story. Get out. Get the F out. So I can't believe this. I'm sure maybe I used profanity. God forgive me. This place is corrupt, okay? Corrupt. Top to bottom and bottom to top. And Antonio Guterres is worse than Ban Ki-moon. He's known for 16 months that the press is evicted. You know what he did today? We asked him a question about God, not even about censorship, about why doesn't he have an independent investigative review? And he, get out of the way. And then he went up and delivered a 20-minute interview to a fat, corrupt, Saudi-funded Al Arabiya so he could go to Saudi Arabia and pitch for more blood money. He's disgusting. And I'm going to have a right to say it and still be treated fairly. Okay? Because the other journalists here say Assad is disgusting. They call him a regime. I'm calling this a regime. And I'm a journalist. I don't want to be treated better than Voice of America, which tried to throw inner city press out of the UN. Reuters, who has an incompetent reporter who steals stories. I don't want to be treated better, but I will not be treated worse. And so we will return tomorrow, when there will be a Security Council meeting about missiles in Syria, and they can smash Inner City Press's computer, and they can throw it out of its office. They can do whatever they want, because the UN, as currently constituted, is corrupt. 100%. Top to bottom and bottom to top. Security to management. You take journalists that report on the place and throw them in the street and allow no-show dictator media that never comes in full access. This is what I call corrupt. Top to bottom, bottom to top. Antonio Guterres is corrupt. Yes, it's true. And his minions stand there and they throw smash computers on the ground. It's been I don't know. Oh, don't point the camera at me. I'm going to point the camera at you. You know why? Because you are corrupt. Okay, here we are on 57th Street. This is the $50 million mansion of the UN Secretary General. We've written at least 15 stories today. Missiles have flown. At about 9 p.m., Trump announced that he, the U.S., France and the UK had fired airstrikes on Syria. We wrote stories. We went to the Security Council. We'd been told earlier in the day that Antonio Guterres was leaving, quote, this evening for Saudi Arabia. Blood money too, we called it. And then, after writing 3 stories, and before we wrote stories 4 and 5, we wrote to Antonio Guterres' spokespeople, and we said, what's his comment on the airstrike, since he earlier said it was hypothetical, and where is he? And they said he's about to comment, and he's in New York. And I have to say, I believe it's true. Unless they're just wasting the money on the lights and the car, Guterres apparently, since there's no way to know. See, with Trump trips, they announce the time, open press, closed press, but this guy is a secretive sleazebag that censors the press for 16 months. That said, he's still here. And by any definition that I know of, this evening means before midnight. 4 lights are on. Guterres is pacing around. What do I do? Oh my God. Am I going to lose a second term if I criticize the airstrikes? Will I lose a second term if I don't? How do I keep this $50 million mansion and my flying around to Lisbon all the time? How do I do it? And I want to keep that press down. Today, and this is what it's on, bro. We were standing covering the Security Council. We had asked Mansour, Kuwait, and Tunisia why Guterres didn't have his own investigation. And they answered. And so when Guterres walked by, we said, Mr. Secretary General, very polite, why don't you have your own investigation? And he went, this is beneath me. I've got to get up with that fat sleazeball from a Gulf media and stand and deliver for money and blood money. No, that's disgusting and corrupt. And you know what? I don't want a 20-minute interview. I don't think this guy can say anything for 20 minutes that would even interest my viewers. But I will not be treated worse than prostitute dictator media. I won't. And it's been 16 months. This guy is corrupt. He will do nothing to solve the suffering of anyone that I know. ICO? Oh, sorry, it probably meant ICP, and it meant Inner City Press. I may have retyped it wrong. ICO, I'd like to come up with. I want to be responsive, but it may be that it was just a shortening of Inner City Press. The UN, though, stands for the United Nations. Sorry. And I'm sorry about that. Sometimes I get, I'm rolling on a bike, so I'm kind of eager to start the periscoping before my time runs out on the bike. I should proofread more, but I think this is newsworthy. Yeah, definitely. Sorry, I wasn't trying to be insulting at all. This is newsworthy, though. Believe it or not, as strange as it seems, and as much as the UN, they're like, I talked to security guards. One today, a security officer of the UN told me, you can't film with the stakeout. False censorship. But other ones say, we caught you at the residence. Number one, I'm not at the residence. Look, I'm in front of a building across the street, 4 Sutton Place. This is expensive real estate. Number two, I'm a New York City resident and a journalist. Number three, I hate to tell you, this is newsworthy. The world's top diplomat, no matter how incompetent and sleazy and corrupt he is still in New York with lights blazing at midnight on the night that the missiles flow. By any definition, this is newsworthy. And that's why inner-city press news purveyor should not be restricted to minders in the tourist entrance. And if this joker, this corrupt joker, and his global communicator, Alison Smale, don't reverse it immediately, well, watch this feed. And watch it tomorrow, because supposedly there's a Mattis briefing or Pentagon briefing at 9 a.m. You'd think the Security Council would have a meeting for all their BS. They hold weekend meetings on much less. But who knows? Maybe they've shot their load. That's probably what Guterres is trying to find out. Can I slip away to Lisbon without getting called out? We're going to call you out, bro. You are a corrupt censor. To be